This tiny golden aura is the grace of the Erd Tree. This light once shone in the eyes of your tarnished brethren, but now it is all that guides you.
By the way, do you still see it? The guidance of grace.
People often underestimate Marika, as she never actively fought herself, but lets other people do her fights for her, like Radagon and Godfrey as an example. But her physical strength aside, her spiritual and mental strength seems to be even stronger than we thought. During her reign as a god, Marika was able to change the history of the lands between. She made the world believe in her vision and destroyed everyone that stood in her way. And she managed to rewrite and erase history in people's minds, to the extent that people forgot about their friends and even loved ones, like Mesmer and his crusade, who played a big role in the establishment of the era of the Erd Tree, were completely forgotten and were never mentioned in the lands between. To me, it seems that everything that happened in and to the realm of shadow, including its inhabitants, was erased from the history of the lands between. And yet, the people of the realm of shadow do remember Marika, the Erd Tree, and everything connected to it just fine.
The Erd Tree is my people's enemy, by Marika long betrayed.
So my question is, why? Or more, how? Would it be possible to eradicate the realm of shadow from the history and even from people's minds? What made the realm of shadow so different that it was simply forgotten?
Grace's guidance holds the answers.
Hi, I'm Banuune, and I welcome you to my journey discovering the mysteries of Elden Ring. As the lore gets very complicated, I'll recommend to take my hand, like the video, and subscribe while I guide you through it. Our journey will mainly focus on environmental storytelling while analyzing where and why certain things can be found where they are, and questioning why we are given certain information. I'm sure Miyazaki hid a secret story here that is waiting to be unveiled. And I think that some answers can be found by reading in between the lines, as I believe there's a reason behind every information in the game, even if the information is just a texture on the wall. So if you're ready, I'd say let's dive in. Before we are able to explain anything about Marika and her powers, we need to explain one question first. What is grace?
Grace that dwells within the inhabitants of the lands between, the lingering residue of gold. Runes are nourishment for the development of any tarnished, provided a finger maiden can be found.
A fetish indicating the guidance of grace. Similar to grace, this fetish draws rays guiding the way, only without any sense of order. Useful as a last resort for those who have lost their way, or for use by those who believe that unrefined guidance will lead to truer encounters.
The memory of first grace, which once guided bygone tarnished to the lands between. It is merely a cycle. Stand before the Elden Ring, become the Elden Lord.
The call of long-lost grace speaks to us all.
So, grace is what connects us all. It is bestowed upon all the inhabitants of the lands between. Even the tarnished, who, as we were told, were stripped from grace, do have grace. Many seem to be not guided by it anymore, but it still seems to be something that keeps them alive. Like their essence of life, but not the essence of life. As losing grace when alive will not cause you to die, but gaining grace once dead will bring you new life.
Guided by grace.
And we see in the intro cutscene that the Tarnished do have grace. And it was grace that brought them back to life after all. So all the Tarnished have a connection to grace, even though they think they don't. Rogier, even though he was killed by Deathblight, can still be found in the Round Table Hold. Which means even the Tarnished that can see the guidance of grace will be brought back to life by it, just like everyone else. I will not elaborate on why the demigods are not respawning here, as I want to talk about that in my next video, so don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified if you don't want to miss it. Anyways, so grace can be found in all the inhabitants of the lands between. The Erdtree, just like grace, will bring you back to life if you are connected to it, as seen in the Erdtree burial practices. Be absorbed by the tree to be reborn. And it seems that the influence of grace, no matter what faction you belong to or who your god is, will reach everyone in the lands between. But I think that grace can do far more than just bringing someone back to life or guiding one's path.
An iris blessed with an incantation of the Erdtree. Place on the eye of another to grant them the light of grace as a fleeing blessing. In the realm of shadow, this artifice was employed by the priests of the Erdtree to quell the fears of their flock to magnificent effect.
Has the guidance of grace returned to your vision?
According to the iris of grace, grace can be placed in someone's eye manually. Being given this iris of grace, all fears were washed away by what it must felt like mother's warm embrace. Zullie the witch made a great video where she pointed out the different eye colors of the inhabitants of the lands between. Link will be in the description. This tells me that there could be a connection between the gold of grace in one's eye and the iris of grace that was used by the Erdtree priests. The iris seems to change one's perception of the world. They are blinded by the light of grace until Marika and grace is all they can see.
As if our night simply never was.
You could also say that they used this iris to erase other people's memories of everything that is not Marika or grace.
An iris that is as dark as night. Place on the eye of another to deny them light in all its forms. In the realm of shadow, this artifice was employed by the priests of the Erdtree to intensify the fears of their flock to magnificent effect.
As the iris of occultation looks pretty similar to the iris of grace, you can assume that it was also made by Marika and also contains grace. But it was used to spread fear instead of love. I think it was used against the ones that were left after the purge, yet still refused to believe in Marika. And by spreading fear, they would eventually start believing in Marika. Mikola is the most fearsome Empyrean. But who said Marika couldn't have been fearsome too? When Marika became a god, the lands between and the realm of shadow were still connected. It's unclear why Marika chose to hide everything, including her own sins, in the realm of shadow, but she did. According to the minor Erdtree incantation, the shaman village is her home, which makes her a shaman. The shamans were captured and tortured to be put into jars by the Hornsent, even to this day. We can find many Marika statues in the realm of shadow, which makes it clear that Marika was praised by its people at one point. And I think at the time the statues were made, the worlds were still connected. But now the statues can only be found in a decapitated state, which was likely the result of her sending Mesmer to purge the Hornsent, who tortured her kinfolk. After being betrayed and abandoned by Marika, the people of the now called Realm of Shadow decapitated the statues of Marika, which represents their anger. So the torture that happens to the shaman in the Realm of Shadow should be known in the lands between, yet no one remembers. There are strategies to wipe out the previous history for future generations. You burn books and destroy everything that could potentially teach something you don't want the people to know. Over the next generations, certain facts will simply be forgotten, and no one will remember them. But due to her plugging the rune of death, the current generation will last forever if she is not able to kill them all. But as a queen needs her folk, just like a goddess needs her worshippers, she knew she couldn't kill them all. So she had to come up with another plan. Instead of killing everyone in the lands between, she made them all forget about everything that happened to and in the Realm of Shadow, even to the extent that family and friends were forgotten, like Renala seemingly forgetting about Rolana. Or Mesmer, Marika's first son and close friend to Rodan, was never mentioned in the lands between. But how did she do that? Marika made Mesmer responsible for killing everyone not connected to Grace.
Those stripped of the grace of gold shall all meet death.
But we can clearly find lost grace all over the Land of Shadow. So what I've been thinking is that there is probably a difference between lost grace and the grace of gold. And the grace of gold is what lingers inside of every inhabitant of the Lands Between. This includes the Tarnished, which is why Mesmer is both surprised and angry to see us.
That tarnished, it seemeth.
He seems to be confused why Marika would choose us to become Elden Lord, because she was the one who gave him the order to kill everyone who did not believe in Marika's order, to slowly spread her ideology, to make sure the people either forgot about her sins by being blinded by grace, or they were killed. And she had many followers that helped her fulfill that wish.
Black leather armor for blending in with the darkness. The churches outside the Lands Between, dedicated to the teachings of the Two Fingers, send confessors out to follow the guidance of grace. The confessors are loyal servants to the Two Fingers, ready to hunt down and quietly dispose of their enemies.
The confessors were probably somehow connected to Mesmer's Purge, as their sigil looks similar to parts of Mesmer's sigil, even though they are not the same. Though she may have used confessors to kill people, Marika soon realized if she keeps killing people, then the world would be empty one day. So she had to find another way to be known as the true God again. And she did. Grace. Marika realized that she could use the power of grace to blind others to all else. But she knew that that wasn't enough. She had to make them all forget about everything. So when she grew her Erdtree with the power of grace, she made sure that in her land, the gold of grace reaches all, if you want it or not. The grace of gold no longer reaches the realm of shadow, but it once did.
Golden remnants of the grace bestowed upon those who fell in the realm of shadow. The soldiers who joined the crusade were rewarded with grace aplenty.
I think grace is Marika's element, which would also explain where Miquella got his power from, as both seem to compel people into doing what they want them to do. And if in the past, grace was found even in the realm of shadow, it would be possible that using grace was how Marika became a god in the first place. Maybe she used her powers to blind the people into believing she is the true god. The similarities between Marika's story and the one from the Erdtree are undeniable. The Crucible is the primordial form of the Erdtree, where all life was once blended together. And Marika too was once blended together with other life forms inside a jar or a crucible. And just like the Crucible itself, she wanted this jarring ritual to be forgotten. And to me it seems like Marika wanted her people to forget first, to end their suffering. We find the minor Erdtree sprouted in the shaman village, spreading its blessing to this day. And as I believe grace will cause memory loss, I think this was her attempt to release them from their pain. I think it's also the reason why we can find an iris of grace in the nursing room of the Shadowkeep. Either Marika placed it there before she left, or she gave it to Mesmer so that he could take care of them. But splitting the worlds resulted in the Erdtree absorbing all the life from the Shadow Tree, until it became the sole base for spreading grace all over the Lands Between, rendering the realm of shadow in darkness.
The Shadow Tree is the shadow of the Erdtree. No wonder grace shines ever so brilliantly.
And if Marika is the Erdtree, or at least made it, then the shadow of the Erdtree could also metaphorically mean Marika's bad side, which makes it clearer why she chose to hide it. But splitting the worlds resulted in the Erdtree spreading its grace only throughout the Lands Between, and causing the realm of shadow to be forgotten by the inhabitants of the Lands Between. The influence of grace could also be the reason why we, the Tarnished, can tell anyone about the realm of shadow and our experience in it, because every time we enter the Lands Between, the grace of the Erdtree will make you forget. Families, friends, and foes alike were all forgotten if they happen to be trapped inside the realm of shadow, while the people of the realm of shadow still remember just fine. we can find information about Godfrey, America, the Erdtree, and many more. So it seems to have been the influence of grace that was spread over the lands between that made only its people forget. Because I believe being separated did not cause the two worlds to forget. Because if that were the case, then the realm of shadow would not remember the lands between. But they do. And I think I found something that could hint at the connection between memory loss and one's presence in the realm of shadow.
Armor worn by lean, mean, and filthy militiamen, freshly singed battlegrounds effusing with the stench of the dead, forbidden lands that will be excised from the memory of history. This is where the vulgar militia serve, as untiring, unsung watchkeepers.
The vulgar militiamen can be found in the lands between. Their armor describes them very well, I'd say. Little bastards. Their armor tells us about forbidden lands that will be excised from the memory of history. With the DLC, we can now find them in the realm of shadow too. Interestingly, the armor description is almost the same, except for 2 additions. The first addition connects them to the lands between counterparts by telling us that the realm of shadow militiamen armor was worn by vulgar militiamen.
Armor as dark as shadow, worn by vulgar militiamen.
And the second edition is telling us something about those forbidden lands.
Forbidden lands that will be excised from the memory of history. What better place than the realm of shadow, then, for such an army?
It seems the realm of shadow are those lands that will be excised from the memory of history. And having almost 2 similar item descriptions about one group of enemies, with only one having the realm of shadow in its description, makes it clear to me that there is a connection between one's presence in the realm of shadow and being forgotten. Because Marika's hatred of the Hornsent and her fear of Mesmer was so intense that she chose to erase them from the memory of history. She left Mesmer there to make sure that everyone without grace will die alongside their history. And she made sure that no one should remember what she did to achieve it.
The seduction and the betrayal.
Talking about losing memory, Godfrey, or Hoarah, is a great example of memory loss caused by grace.
When Godfrey, first Elden Lord, was robbed of his grace, becoming tarnished, he took with him his kinfolk and left the lands between. After the long march of the tarnished came to an end, Godfrey divested himself of kingship, becoming a simple warrior once more.
He was once a mighty crucible warrior and well known. We can speculate that when he met Marika and her grace, he forgot about himself and became Godfrey. And it was also Godfrey who was banished from the lands between, but he died as Hoarah. So at the end of their march, he became Hoarah, but at the time we meet him in the lands between, he is Godfrey again. This could hint at the idea that when Marika gave him back his grace, he, again, forgot about his journey and everything connected to it, to the extent that he forgot that he became Hoarah once more. So being granted grace will blind you so much that the only thing left to see is grace itself. And as grace, just like the Erdtree, is a part of Marika herself, the effect of forgetting will not affect her. You will remember Marika, no matter what. In my last video, I pointed out the connection between the sun, gold, and the Golden Order, as well as the moon, silver, and the Eternal Cities. There are theories about how they try to recreate the Golden Order from silver. And if grace is golden and causes memory loss, then the Eternal City's Celestial Dew could be the silver variant of grace. It also causes memory loss, but not as strong as grace. All bad memories towards individuals will be erased. Interestingly, grace removes your memories of everything not connected to grace, but using Celestial Dew will erase someone else's bad memories about you, acting like inverted grace. So grace and Celestial Dew seem to be the opposite of each other. But just like the sun and the moon both orbit the skies, so do grace and Celestial Dew both erase memories. Same concept, different results. But our memories play a huge role in our decision making. So, by losing our memories, we lose our free will. And this is where the guidance of grace comes into play. Grace will tell you what to do. And as it is the only thing you remember after your death, you trust it, just like a child will always trust its mother. So you follow it. Nameless Singer posted a theory on Reddit 2 years ago where she theorized that the Erdtree is made out of grace, which is made from memories, meaning that she theorized about the connection between grace, memories, and the Erdtree 2 years ago. She has a YouTube channel now, and I highly recommend checking it out. Link will be in the description down below. And with the new information from the DLC, it seems that she had a good point here. There actually seems to be a connection between the grace of gold, the Erdtree, and the world's memories. Also, a little fun fact. By sitting at the side of lost grace, you will reset the world. If we use the theory of memory loss, combined with the fact that America chose us, and the fact that resting at the side of grace will reset everything, we could speculate that America bends the world around us to make sure we succeed. Rest at grace, and the world will forget that they attacked you. The world will forget that you drank a flask, and even that you were poisoned, for example. But why did you choose us as Elden Lord exactly? We died. Twice. And we have grace. Which means we lost our memories entirely. You could say we are the most mindless being in this world. And with no memory of who we are, we had no free will. And Marika had a malleable warrior whose will she could bend to her wishes. Like a mindless puppy, she guided us to her path to kill her children, claim the Great Runes, and become Elden Lord on her side. We can evidently say Marika had a big part of the history erased. She purged the Realm of Shadow. Mesmer had many friends in the Lands Between, and Renala's sister Relana joined Mesmer on his crusade, yet nothing is remembered. And I think it is the influence of grace in the Lands Between that caused its people to forget about everything that is not Marika. The Iris of Grace tells us that someone was manually going around to spread grace before the era of the Erdtree, and I think it was to make the people forget. And with the era of the Erdtree, the two worlds were separated. The Realm of Shadow was stripped of grace, while the Lands Between was flooded with it, metaphorically blinding its inhabitants. And by sprouting the Erdtree and spreading her grace in the Lands Between, Marika caused the Realm of Shadow to be forgotten, while its inhabitants remember just fine. The history of the Lands Between is not easy to understand, but if we get rid of what makes us blind, then maybe we can see the truth. I've heard many people complaining about the disconnection between the main game and the DLC, and to me it seems that those people forgot that it's a FromSoft game. They tend to give gameplay mechanics a low reason, like the Tarnished respawning as an example. So what I see in this disconnection is a lower reason that we, the player, have to find out for ourselves. But what are your thoughts about grace? Do you think it has something to do with all the people forgetting, or is there something I'm missing? I'm curious to hear your opinion about this topic. But before we end this video, I'd like to give a special thank you to some special people. My best friend, Gil, V-Limit, Tim Diggity, and Scummage Info. Thank you for being a part of my video. Your voices sounded up amazing. And if you enjoy the sneak peek of their voice, make sure to check out their channels. They all made amazing videos about Elden Ring and other games. So follow the links in the description down below to their channels and give them a hug while you're there. Also, thank you for staying till the end. I'm looking forward to see you in the next one. Bye!